Namaste, I am Dr. S. Padmapriya. I will be guiding the students in the preparation for the UGC NET Economics exam. Today in the first course, I will be covering the first 5 chapters of Unit 1 of Microeconomics of UGC NET Economics syllabus. So let us proceed to the first chapter or first lesson of the course. The title is Theory of Consumer Behavior. The theory of consumer behavior encompasses the topics of neoclassical utility analysis, the theory of demand, the indifference curve theory, the concept of consumer surplus, the revealed preference theory of demand, and various concepts of the elasticity of demand. Now, the first important utility analysis is the neoclassical utility analysis, which was given by the great neoclassical economists Marshall and Pigou, according to whom utility is measurable and additive. According to them, utility can be measured cardinally. What is total utility? Total utility is nothing but the sum total of utilities obtained by the consumer from different units of a commodity. What is marginal utility? It is the addition made to total utility by having an additional unit of the commodity. Now let us come to the concept of law of diminishing marginal utility. According to law of diminishing marginal utility, which is also known as Gauss's first law, the magnitude of one and the same satisfaction when we continue to enjoy it without interruption continually decreases until satiation is reached. Let us take the example of a person who is thirsty. The first tumbler of water will give him a certain level of satisfaction, and as he goes on drinking more and more tumblers of water, the utility given by the additional units of water will be less and less. Now we come to the concept of law of maximum satisfaction, which is known as Gauss's second law. Now in the hypothetical case of two commodities, it will be such that the marginal utility of good A by price of A is equal to marginal utility of good B by price of B, which is also known as the proportionality rule. Now we come to the important concept of law of demand. The law of demand is nothing but it indicates the inverse relationship between the price and quantity demanded. That is, as the price is more, the quantity demanded will be less, and when the price is less, quantity demanded will be more. Here in graph number 1, we can take the law of demand, and we can observe that the curve DD1 is downward sloping and it is going from left to right, which indicates the inverse relationship in price and quantity demanded. When price is P1, quantity demanded is less at Q1. When price is less at P2, quantity demanded is more at Q2. So this concept is based on certain things like law of diminishing marginal utility, income effect, substitution effect. Now there are certain exceptions to the law of demand. Example, we have the case of given goods, where the quantity demanded of inferior goods will increase with increase in its price and vice versa. Examples, bread and salt. In the case of Veblen goods or status goods like diamonds and fancy cars, we observe that the consumer will buy more even when the price is more. Then we have the concept of speculative effect. When price of shares increase, people will buy more and vice versa. Similarly, during periods of inflation, people will buy more expecting the price to rise even more. Now we go on to study the changes in demand or shifts in demand curve. When income increases, consumers will buy more. So demand curve will shift to the right. Let us take the graph number 2, where we see that the demand curve is shifting from D to D1 when income is more. Now it is nothing but at the certain price level of P, the demand will increase from D to D1 when the income rises. Now we go to the concept of decreasing demand because of fall in income. When the income is falling, obviously the demand curve will shift to the left. This is understood in the graph number 3, where we have demand curve shifting from D to D1. That is, at a certain price level, the quantity demanded will decrease when the income is decreasing. Now we go to the indifference curve theory analysis, which was given by John Hicks in his famous book Value and Capital in the year 1939. The indifference curve analysis is considered to be an improvement over the neoclassical utility theory. The indifference curve analysis measures utility in an ordinal manner. Consumers can buy different combinations of goods. An indifference curve represents a certain level of satisfaction. Here in graph number 4, we find that all combinations of two goods on a given indifference curve gives the same level of satisfaction for the consumer. Here in graph number 4, A, B, C, D are various combinations of good X and good Y on the indifference curve, which give the consumer the certain same level of satisfaction. Now what are the properties of indifference curve? A higher indifference curve represents a higher level of satisfaction, whereas a lower indifference curve represents a lower level of satisfaction. And there can be any number of indifference curve between two indifference curves. The indifference curve does not intersect another indifference curve. The slope of an indifference curve is negative downward sloping and moves from left to right, and then convex, which means that the marginal rate of substitution is lower. And then we have indifference curve which are not necessarily parallel to each other. So what is basically MRS, or marginal rate of substitution? It is the slope of indifference curve as indicated by change in y by change in x. There are certain exceptions to normal indifference curve. We can see cases where indifference curves are concave when they are 45 degrees, when they are 90 degrees, and so on and so forth. So when MRS is increasing, IC will be concave. When MRS is constant, IC will be 45 degrees with either axis. In the case of perfectly complementary goods also, MRS is 0, so it will be L-shaped or 90 degrees IC curve. Now we come to the concept of price line or budget line, which is the graphical representation of all possible combinations of two goods which can be purchased with the given income and prices, such that the cost of each of these combinations is equal to the money income of the consumer. The slope of the budget line or the price line is also called as the price ratio. Here in graph number 5, we notice that it is BA, which is the budget line, where we take good X along the X-axis and good Y along the Y-axis. So where does the consumer reach his equilibrium? The consumer reaches his equilibrium at point A, which is known as consumer's equilibrium, when the indifference curve is tangent to the budget line. Here in graph number 6, we notice that A is the optimal point for the consumer where he attains equilibrium. D, C, E and other points are not points of consumer's equilibrium because they are either above the budget or they are below the budget. Now we come to the concept of income effect, but income effect is nothing but the changes in purchases because of changes in income. Now we have the concept of income consumption curve, which represents the quantities of good X and good Y that can be purchased by a consumer at various levels of income. Now in graph 7, we see the ICC curve, which is the curve joining the points of tangency between the various price lines and budget lines and various indifference curve. So we have indifference curve, income consumption curve passing through D, E and F. Now, there are different types of income consumption curves. Here we have ICC1, ICC2, ICC3, ICC4 and ICC5. In the case of normal good, income consumption curve has a particular kind of slope. When a good is superior, it has a certain kind of slope. Like when good X is superior, ICC2 is horizontal. When Y is superior, then ICC3 is vertical. And similarly, ICC4 is also vertical from point A. ICC5 shows where X is a inferior good. Now we come to the concept of Engel's curve. The concept of Engel's curve is given by Ernest Engel. It describes the household expenditure change because of change in income. Here EC is the Engel's curve, as we can see from the graph. Now we come to the concept of why it is superior. Why is the indifference curve analysis superior to the utility analysis? Because it dispenses with cardinal utility of measurement of utility, it studies combinations of two goods, and it does not assume constant marginal utility of money. Now we come to the concept of consumer surplus, which is nothing but the excess of price which a consumer is willing to pay rather than go without a thing. Okay. Now we have the very important theory, which is a theory of revealed preference theory of demand given by Paul A. Samuelson, the great economist. And it is considered to be the most superior because it does not involve any psychological introspective information about the behavior of the consumer, nor does it make use of dubious assumptions like law of diminishing marginal utility or other concepts. The overcompensation effect concept given by Samuelson is more realistic than the compensation variation concept given by Hicks. Now we come to the concept of price elasticity of demand. The elasticity of demand may be defined as the ratio of percentage change in demand to the percentage change in price. There are various factors determining price elasticity, like nature of need, how many substitutes it has, how much of money is spent on the consumption of the good, and whether it is based on some things like addictiveness and so on and so forth. There are certain measures of price elasticity of demand like ARC method, expenditure method and so on and so forth. What is unitary price elasticity of demand? Price elasticity of demand is unity when the change in demand is exactly proportionate to the change in price. Relatively elastic demand, when a small change in price leads to a large change in quantity demanded. Then we have relatively inelastic demand, when a large change in price leads to a small change in demand. Here we see demand curve DD, where the large change in price P1 to P2 leads to a small change in demand Q1 to Q2. Then we have perfectly inelastic demand, or elasticity is D0, that is whatever be the change in price, there is no change in demand. Then we have perfectly inelastic demand, which is where it is horizontal to the x-axis. When an infinitesimal small change in price leads to an infinitely large change in demand. We have also concepts like cross elasticity of demand. Now we have another concept called as income elasticity of demand, which expresses the responsiveness of a consumer's demand for a commodity due to a change in price, due to a change in income. Formula to calculate price elasticity of demand. So there is a certain formula to understand the price elasticity of demand. Here I have given two problems. The first problem is to how to calculate price elasticity of demand. Suppose the price of carrots increases from 10 to 12 and the quantity demanded decreases from 10 to 8. How to calculate the price elasticity? Here we say the change in price is 12 minus 10, which is 2. Then we have change in quantity 8 minus 10, which is minus 2. Initial price is 10, initial quantity is 10. Price elasticity of demand is change in quantity by change in price into price by quantity. Change in quantity is minus 2 by change in price is 2 multiplied by 10 by 10, which is minus 1 multiplied by 1, which is equal to minus 1. We take the absolute value, therefore we say the price elasticity is unity. Similarly, we have the income elasticity of demand, which can be calculated through an example. Here in this particular question, we see where the income of the consumer rises from 10,000 rupees to 12,000 rupees and the demand for wheat increases from 30 kgs to 40 kgs. Now what is the change in quantity? 40 minus 30, which is 10. Change in income is 12,000 minus 10,000, which is 2,000. Income is 10,000. The quantity is 30. So change in quantity by change in income into income by quantity, which is nothing but 10 by 2,000 into 10,000 by 30, which is equal to 1.66. So we see there are various concepts which can be understood, like income elasticity of demand and price elasticity of demand. We also have an important concept like cross elasticity of demand, which is nothing but the relationship between percentage change in quantity demanded of good to the percentage change in the price of a relative good. So overall, what is that points which we have to note? First and foremost, we have already covered neoclassical utility analysis, which was followed by the indifference curve analysis, which is followed by the revealed preference theory of demand. Here we find that the revealed preference theory of demand given by Paul A. Samuelson is the most superior theory of demand. And then we also have gone through the various concepts of elasticity of demand, and we have learned to calculate price elasticity of demand, and we have also learned to calculate the income elasticity of demand through various examples. So overall, the theory of consumer behavior is a very important chapter for the UGC NET exam. So all of us will have to go through the various important points related to the neoclassical theory, the indifference curve theory, the revealed preference theory. We also have to know how to calculate price elasticity of demand, the income elasticity of demand. We also have to know what are the methods to calculate elasticity of demand. And we have to understand the concept of consumer surplus. We must not forget the various concepts of utility analysis, whether it is neoclassical or indifference curve approach or revealed preference approach or price elasticity of demand approach. So this thus is the completion of the theory of consumer demand. Thank you.